War and strategy. That's what we're going to talk about today. As there are a couple of conflicts in the world, and I have an interesting opinion on the action on those. So we have a couple of wars, I suppose, if you want to say, going on in the world. Of course, there's Ukraine and Russia, and there's the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Now, the one I want to concentrate on the most is probably going to be the Israeli conflict. I see all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't see strategists want to do, or that you've seen in the past, where even you can easily see some Netflix shows to tell you, we learned this mistake, we shouldn't do it again. But then you have Israel. And I don't know what the whole deal is with all of this, but I've got some insights. One, on October 7th, Hamas came in and did a really big strategic blunder. I think if they would have actually had access to a lot of these strategy classics and the Sun Tzu's Art of War, the maxims of Napoleon, and even reading some of Julius Caesar's stuff that's contained within these books that I like to read, they might have learned something. Maybe even if they would have watched some of the footage from Stalingrad, I think Israel might have learned something on how better to take on Hamas. Now, Hamas, absolutely strategical idiots. They went in, killed a bunch of people, innocent civilians from around the world even, and took a bunch of hostages from around the world. This was a huge blunder. And I get it in a way. They're zealots. They think God is on their side. He's on our side. He's not going to deny us. We have divine right to do this. Sounds familiar in a lot of cases, I'm sure. So they launched an attack. It was a blunder because they had no means to sustain any kind of attack. I don't care who's supplying them with arms or anything else, and that's the problem. That's one of the problems right here. Sun Tzu said in his book, 5 conditions he can tell who's going to be the victor and who's going to be the defeated on 5 conditions. One is who has the power. Powerful weapons, who has more powerful weaponry, who has access to it, who has access to replenishing that, who has access to more troops, who has access to more strength and power. That's one. Now, strength and power isn't the only thing you need. You need the other 4 to go along with it. Because if you're just a big, strong guy, but you have no training or technique or conditioning, well, some little guy who has that might be able to beat you. And that's really how it goes. So the others are doctrine and training, which go together. Training is how much training do you have? Doctrine is how well were you trained? How was your coaching? What's the doctrine that your leadership used to train you with? And that's a big thing we see right here with Israel. They really lack leadership in a lot of ways, because you wouldn't have the indiscriminate killing of civilians like they do. 2/3 are women and children. And there was one case where they even justified it. Yeah, we got this one Hamas lieutenant, but they killed 400 civilians to get him. We killed 400 civilians, yeah, but we got this one lieutenant in Hamas. That's a failure of leadership. That's what this is. When you see the total destruction of Gaza like it is, and there's a reason why. Because, Israel was to take that over, and it's just easy if they're destroyed to, clean that up. We don't have to demo. It's already demoed. Then they can take it over. But that, too, is a rule of war. You see, Hamas was stupid. Because Hamas attacked Israel has a right to defend itself in a way. But, as much as it can be done, of course. And that's what they did. So they defended themselves. They have a right. Now, they actually probably have a good solid grounding to just take over that whole area, and Palestine won't be a state anymore. That is the rules of war. So that's what we're seeing. So you see this total destruction of Gaza, which I think is a blunder, because like I said, if they would have just seen what they did in Stalingrad, see Germany bomb Stalingrad, they thought, okay, we'll send a Luftwaffe in and we'll bomb it to the smithereens and we'll kill their will to fight and everything else. But the other thing is, Germany was a mechanized army. So when you destroy everything, it's hard to get your equipment in there. And that's one of the reasons why Germany was defeated in Stalingrad. They couldn't get their heavy mechanized army in where they already destroyed everything. Too much rubble everywhere. Not only that, that rubble is great for people to hide in, snipers and whatever. So they couldn't take Stalingrad. They got so far, and then they couldn't supply it and everything else. And then there's a other thing with everything else that happened afterwards. But one of the biggest reasons that slowed them way down was the total destruction that they did that stopped their mechanized army from even being able to go into some places. That's what Israel did. They also did another big blunder just lately. They attacked an Iranian consulate. One, that's against international law. So here we go, going back here. And on the 5 conditions, we just talked about 3. The other is terrain, being able to hold on to the terrain or know the terrain, times of night and day and everything else, knowing not to destroy buildings completely to the place where you can't get any mechanized equipment in, knowing your terrain. And the last is will of the people. Well, we know Hamas lost that when they attacked innocent civilians from around the world at a concert. They really lost that. They really lost it from everybody. But see, but Israel's doing the same thing. Because, see, one, nobody in the world, worldwide, likes to see them kill civilians. They even hate it less when aid workers from around the world get killed too, and almost over 200 aid workers have been targeted by Israelis and killed indiscriminately. This is a lack of leadership. That's what that is. You don't get those numbers, you don't get those things unless, 1, this is your plan, and 2, you have poor leadership. So that's what you got. And that's the other thing. See, the strategy here. They attacked Iran consulate. Now Iran has very well and reasoned international planks and everything to attack Israel's interest. They absolutely do. They didn't attack Israel directly. Maybe they're using proxies, but that's where they're being strategically smarter than Israel. Because here's the other thing, right? Something else you want to think about. 70% of Israel's weapon imports come from the United States. Let me say that again. 70% of their weapons are imported from the United States. 15% of their military budget we pay for. Yeah, that's Israel. 70% of their weapons are imported from us, the rest from elsewhere. Well, that tells you something. They don't make their own weapons. They have to be supplied. Now let's contrast that with Iran. Iran supplies weapons to all the other little groups, plus they're supplying weapons to North Korea and Russia. They're a net supplier of weapons. They make weapons. It's what they do. It's one of the things they do. It's one of the things they do well, actually. Drones and everything else. They make weapons. They can make them themselves, which tells you something. There was a greater conflict, Israel would have to rely on us to supply them weapons. Because, see, they break down in war. They break down, you need more ammunition and everything else. Israel is not able to resupply themselves, where Iran absolutely is. They have the capacity and everything else to reconstitute their armies and their armed forces when their machinery and weapons break down, need maintenance, and they need ammo. They make it themselves. They don't just make it for themselves, they make it for other people too. They have a net supply of arms and ammunition. That's what they do. So look at this. So there you go. One, who's stronger? Who has the better navy and everything else? Well, that's Iran. Iran has a much better navy than Israel. They actually have one of the best air forces in the Middle East. They make their own weapons, where Israel does not. Who do you think is going to win that conflict if Israel doesn't have Big Brother over here to help them out? And that's kind of the deal, right? I don't know if Israel is just playing the United States, kind of like they do a lot. They play us a lot. It's what they do. That's why we're giving them 70% of their weaponry and 15% of their budget we pay for. You don't get there without playing the United States of America. That's what they're doing. Now, I'm in no defense of Iran or Hamas or any of that. Iran, hey man, they're bad actors. Believe me, they are. They would kill us Americans, me included, or anybody else in a heartbeat if they could. They're a theocracy. They are Islamic theocracy, so not that I'm against Islam or Muslims or anything else, but they are of a radical type. They really are, and they are no good for the world. They really want to create chaos and conflict, harm economies and everything else. So Iran is a bad actor, but they are one that's not stupid. They are strategically smart. The other thing is their armed forces are all volunteer, where Israel is conscripted. They're forced to do this at a certain age. They have poor leadership, where Iran has it. The factors are there. Iran has diplomatically put themselves in a good position in a lot of ways. They have all these other proxy groups that are a lot allied with them that they know how to use, that Israel doesn't have. They also have attention on the world stage with the UN and everything else, and are smart enough to use those international laws against Israel, where Israel seems to don't care, but they should. And I'm not sure where they're going with it. I think maybe Israel thinks maybe if we widen out this conflict, we can get the United States involved, and then Big Brother can come save us if something happens. Because losers like James Langford would do Israel's bidding no matter what. If they wanted to cut the heads off of every Muslim, James Langford would be right there. I support Israel in this decision. He would. That's how he is. So playing the United States is a big deal for Israel. Now, I'm not on anyone's side here. I'm just taking it, looking at it like it is. Hey, who's got what? If I was Iran, now hey, they say within the next week or so, expect a strike from Iran. They're going to do it. Expect it. So if I was Iran, first thing I would do, I would take out whatever semblance of a navy Israel thinks they have. Because one of the strongest navies over there in the Mediterranean and over in the Red Sea is Iran. They have the superior capacity there. And if it wasn't for American warships, maybe not. The United States definitely is a much bigger powerhouse. But Iran, if they strategically wanted to do it, and they may be smart enough, they can take out Israel's navy and not allow them to ship anything. That's probably one of the first things I would do. I would send drones up their navy's butt, and then I might start working on Israel's air force when they're outside of Israel, because again, Iran has the better pilots and air force. They absolutely do. You got to look this stuff up, look at it from an objectionable level, read your strategy guides, and then see, hey, the only way Israel wins in a wider conflict is if the United States gets involved, or France and England and all that stuff. But really, they're more focused on Ukraine, Russia right now, because this little petty going back and forth with Hamas and everything else has really left a bad taste in everybody's mouths. When you see 30,000 plus civilians, women and children, being slaughtered by Israelis, it's not a good look, Israel. It's not a good look. It doesn't get people behind you. Just like when Hamas goes in on the 7th of October and kills a whole bunch of people, over 1,000, 1,200, and then takes more hostage from around the world, that doesn't help your cause either. No one can get behind. Iran can't even get behind Hamas on that. They said, we can't help you out. One, you didn't even clear it with us. We told you don't do it. And it's just a bad look. See, they're strategically smart. That's why Iran, you got to watch those guys. They are a dangerous regime. They are dangerous. I'm sorry, that country is dangerous. They're probably the most dangerous country to the United States right now in the world is Iran. It really is. North Korea, they can't hardly get their crap together. Russia, they've already gone through one whole constituted their armed forces and had to reconstitute, and they're still, lagging and getting everything blown up. But that's again, see, Russia's able to make their own weapons, right? They're able to reconstitute their armies, which they did. See, they don't have to rely on supplies. That's why Ukraine's in such a bad position. They have to rely on France and the United States and Germany and England to send them ammunition, supplies, and firearms and stuff. They have to rely on that, where Russia can just make it themselves. And that's what they do. And that's what Iran does. See, that's why in a wider conflict, Iran would pretty much wipe Israel out. Just kind of like Israel's wiping Hamas out. Same thing. But Iran would be a lot smarter about it. They have a coalition. They're smart enough not to alienate everybody. They're smart enough to use proxies to do a lot of their dirty work and wash their hands of it. This is, when it comes to war, the politics of war, Iran is way better at Israel than they're way better than Israel. Iran is when it comes to the politics of war. They're absolutely playing it better and everything else. Well, that's my take. That's my take on the conflicts going on in the world today. Iran and Hamas and a little bit of Ukraine and Russia. And check out some strategy books if you want and read through them. See what you guys come up with. See what you think about all that and everything else. Well, this is Across the Desk, and we'll see you guys next week.